that Evo's ever done. And I mean, arguably the greatest car that's ever produced. The McLaren F1.
No one wanted to miss this test. Holidays were cancelled, anniversaries missed, and excuses made just to ensure the chance to be here and see all these cars together. No one, not Nick, nor Harry, nor Dickie, nor Jethro, could think of a better test in all the 15 years of Evo. Because what we've gathered together truly is a magnificent seven.
With the advent of the McLaren P1 and the new Ferrari, that are all hybrids and paddle shift, we thought we'd try and get together some of the last Analogue, the proper old school supercars. Cars that don't tell you how you should drive, it's up to you.
These are our favourite supercars. Analogue creations that put the driver at the very centre of the driving experience. Cars that require more than sheer nerve to be rewarding. Cars that are elevated to the level of super, not simply due to the numbers they achieve, but because of the way they feel.
I'll try and take you through them now, and let's start with the F40, the daddy of them all in some ways.
In its day, it had the ability to jelly your schoolboy's knees like a red Baywatch swimsuit, and as the years have passed, that ability hasn't dwindled in the slightest. It looks perfect. The interior is wonderfully bad. Green glue running messily along the joins of the yellowing Kevlar panels, grey felt covering the dash, steering wheel tilted awkwardly away from the driver. Yet it still feels special. The suspension could charitably be called hard. A single gear change requires leg muscles like Chris Hoy's and the bicep of an arm wrestler. A fluid, easy driving experience it is not. What it is incredibly involving.
It still takes your breath away today, the engine of the F40. The twin turbocharged V8, the punch it delivers is extraordinary, but then again it's very old school. The turbo lag is amazing. You can floor it at 2,000 RPM without a care in the world because it will not do anything. But when it reaches 4,000 RPM, it just takes off down the road like a scolded cat. The clutch pedal feels like you're pressing the brake pedal, it's so heavy, and the gear shift in ours was quite sticky to be honest, so it's a tricky shift to get right, and you have to keep it on boost the whole time to really make the chassis work and feel like you're in control of it. So it's a hard car to drive fast up on these roads, but it is so exciting, and inside it feels small and all the Kevlar carbon fibre looks amazing, and from the outside it steals the show really. Following on from that, well, we've got the Noble M600, which they claim is sort of, they took a lot of inspiration from the F40.
It's not often you feel confident of outrunning a decently ridden superbike, but the Noble is a car with the sort of pace, handling and composure to do just that. It is the only new car in this test, but with no ABS or stability control, it feels like it hails from a different era. The interior is low and dark, with a small steering wheel, tall gear lever, and a switch that turns the boost and power levels up from 450 all the way to 650 brake horsepower.
It feels, well, it feels so much easier to drive, so fast, but in a smooth way, where the F40 comes in with a bang, the M600 just fires you down the roads in one seamless stream. It is probably the fastest car here down the road. The steering's beautiful, the ride is really good. It got a little unsettled on some of the bumpiest roads, but it's a very impressive car. In this company, it probably just lacks a bit of star quality, even in bright Lamborghini orange. But it sounds like an American muscle car, and it is bonkers fast. What next? Well, how about the Lamborghini?
The Lamborghini 670 SV might be the same colour as the Noble, but on paper at least, with its four-wheel drive and naturally aspirated V12, it couldn't be a more different proposition. It is the only car in the test to have a paddle shift, but don't let that fool you, because this is a proper old-school Lambo, something that becomes abundantly clear as soon as you've travelled even a few hundred yards with the Alcantara wheel, writhing in your hands. This is then reinforced over and over by the monstrous engine, the last of the magnificent line of Bizzarini V12s.
It's amazing having the contrast with the paddle shift, because it allows you so much more brain space, because all you're doing to change gear is just one finger twitch, and without having to think about moving 2 legs and an arm to change gear, you seem to have so much more time coming into corners. The 4-wheel drive, well, it feels really very rear-wheel drive. You have to turn the traction control off to get the best out of the chassis, but it's the engine. It's that engine. It's just magnificent. It sounds fantastic. Nearly as good as one other car in this test, or 2 other cars perhaps, which we'll come to in a second. If you like a car with bling, if you like the spectacular, then the Zonda does it.
In the Zonda, you sit in this bubble of a bejewelled glass house, and the incredible all-round visibility makes you feel like you're in the cockpit of a fighter plane. Angels 12, bogies at 6 o'clock, and all that. But it's the driving experience that has brought the Zonda here. The feelings you get from the sublimely damp, surprisingly exploitable chassis, and its transparent steering. Not forgetting, of course, the huge 7.3 litre V12 engine, with its tumultuous 575 pounds-foot of torque. More than any other car here, apart from the turbocharged Noble.
So many of these cars defined by their engines. The Zonda, it's got an enormous amount of torque. It's so sharp. It actually feels quite heavy, the rest of the car, in comparison to some of the others here. But it certainly deserves its place. F40, let's talk about that, the other car with the most fantastic engine.
Some of you will be wondering why we've got an F50 in this test, as well as an F40. Yes, the older car is undeniably better looking, but as a driver's car, a considerably rarer F50 is definitely the one to have. The cabin is sparse enough to make a Caterham look fussy, and you feel every buzz through the carbon chassis. Below 4,000 RPM, the F50's 513 brake horsepower V12 sounds like a dilapidated washing machine on its final spin cycle. But above 4,000 RPM, it is surely the best sounding Ferrari ever.
A long time ago, Evo did a test with F40, F50, Enzo and 288 GTO in the F51. I couldn't quite understand, not until today, and it has been just amazing. The control weights in the F50 are just sublime. It undoubtedly has the best steering, the pedals are just all perfectly weighted, the gear shift is sublime. You can't really rush it, but it is such a sweet open-gated shift. Combine that with the noise of an F1 engine from an era when F1 engines sounded more glorious than ever before, and you have a truly, truly amazing recipe. Yes, it doesn't look great, but then it probably proves you can't have everything. I'd probably have one in black, I think. But yeah, F50, magnificent. The other car that really feels like a race car on the road is Carrera GT.
If the Noble is the successor to the F40, then in many ways the Carrera GT, with its engine that's a refugee from the racetrack, feels like the successor to the F50. Horacio Pagani apparently still reveres the all-carbon construction of the Carrera GT, and as soon as you open the engine cover and see the magnificent 5.7 litre V10 nestled in its own carbon cradle, you can understand why. One of the biggest criticisms of the Carrera GT has been its clutch, but if you ever get the chance to drive one, there's a very specific method for pulling away. You must leave the throttle completely alone. Don't even breathe on the right-hand pedal until the left one is fully up, even on hill starts. It feels utterly counterintuitive, and it's not easy, but trust the clever anti-stall system, and it will work, and it will extend the life of the carbon clutch immeasurably. Once you're up and running, of course, you can use it normally and just concentrate on enjoying yourself.
Before, the handling has always been really monumentally tricky, a really spiky car. The one we've had on this test has been on new Michelin Super Sports, and it just transforms the car. You can take liberties with it now. There's a section on this bit of road that's really corkscrewy and goes over crests, and previously you would have had to tread so carefully on it. Now you can actually take liberties. You can feel what the chassis is like underneath it. The steering's so sharp. I love the fact the gear shift's up high here, that birchwood gear shift, not bolster as some people think, and it's so fast. The engine again is, like all these cars here, absolutely sensational. Sad thing is you can't necessarily hear it when you're in the car as much as you can when you're outside the car. That absolute sort of screaming engine. Talking of which, screaming engine in the Ferrari GT is just sensational. It seems downshifts are just incredible. You can just flash them through so quickly with the gear shift, and the revs respond as fast as your hand can move, which is just crazy. I absolutely love the Ferrari GT. I think everyone did. The steering again, it feels like a really light car, but there's 911 things about it. There's all the best bits of Porsche about it. That's why we've done this test. Analogue supercars, Ferrari GT sums it up. It's just amazing. Finally, this McLaren F1.
Even though this is the second oldest car in this group, its incredible power to weight ratio of 560 brake horsepower per tonne is still the best here. It looks so small, compact and unassuming, like a box of treasure that only gleams when you open it up. And if ever there was any doubt that, unlike the F40, this is a road car, just look at those 45 profile tyres. S.p.A, for those of you that don't know, stands for Experimental Prototype 5, and this is the very car that Andy Wallace piloted to 240.1 miles an hour at Aerolesian in 1998.
I love how you get reversing, is you have to pull this little lever back and then push it all the way over, which releases the gate, creaky steering wheel. But then you've got to allow that, given that this has done 98,000 miles. Yes, this McLaren has done 98,000 miles. It might be a bit like Trigger's broom, but you can't deny there's probably not another fitter car closing in very rapidly on 100,000 miles on its clock. When I was 14 years old, I got to sit in a McLaren F1. I still got the picture at home, and I haven't sat in one since. Getting back into one yesterday, it feels amazing. It feels more than any other car like you're wearing it because of where you sit. Sitting in the middle, it's a bit of a faff getting in, particularly if you're as tall as me, but it's so worth it. It feels very odd sort of being right in the centre of your lane, but the view out is just incredible. It's better to drive than I thought it might be. I was worried I really wouldn't like it, but those tall sidewalls give it a very distinct feeling. The steering is quite heavy when it loads up in corners, but you really can feel an awful lot of what's going on. The brakes, by modern standards, probably not as strong as you want. They do tend to run out of talent, which is a bit worrying when you've got this much power on tap. But the whole car feels so special. Brought alive by the engine, which just, the intake noise is extraordinary. So sharp on the throttle. Everywhere you look, there's something special about this car. The gear shift, when you get it right, second to third is so fast. It feels really intimidating because the last thing you want to do is go from second to first, but it's just, you rush it through, and it's amazing, this car. It takes quite a long time in this car to actually build up pushing. Mean said it takes it another level when you manage to nail a gear change really quickly and the rush is just sustained. It feels as quick as having a paddle shift, and it's infinitely more exciting. Analogue cars, we love you, we salute you, please don't die out.
You could argue that this test was self-serving, that we already knew what we were going to find, but the picture that emerged on the roads of Wales was more vivid and more life-affirming than I think any of us could have hoped. All 7 were sensational, but after 2 days, 3 cars stood out. The Carrera GT, the Ferrari F40, and of course the McLaren F40. The sounds, the control weights, the power deliveries, and yes, above all, the feel of these cars define where the pinnacle of driving pleasure lies.
So what do we learn from this test? Well, you can read the full thing in the magazine, but to me what it says is that we need more cars that are lightweight and keep the driver at the centre of the involvement, because that's what makes all these special. An amazing engine, a lightweight chassis, a manual gearbox, and we're happy. I'm happy now. I just want to keep driving this car faster and faster and faster. And the only thing stopping me really is the fact that we've had to insure this McLaren for £5 million. Get out of the way, sheep. I don't think there'll ever be another test like this.